Welcome to the Building Blocks of Bass. My name is Bob DeBoo. Very glad you're here with us today. Please welcome a very special guest, Mr. Cole Davis. What's up, Cole? How you doing, man?
I'm great, Bob. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. Really glad that you're here. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Very cool. Very cool. So just a little bit about Cole. So Cole, can I talk about you just for a little bit?
Of course.
You're cool with that? All right, let's just start with this because this is pretty impressive, okay? So we're trying to, why should we have Cole on to talk about thumb position, okay? So the man himself, Mr. Francois Rabath, has a beautiful quote. I'm proud to have been an influence on Cole's technical approach to left-hand technique. Cole's a beautiful player. Bravo, young man. I mean, if that was a quote about me, I would have that hung up on my wall. That's so. And then the man, Eddie Gomez, Cole Davis has thoroughly mastered thumb position. And for this, I applaud him. For somebody like Eddie Gomez to say something like that, that is some high praise indeed. Rufus Reed, I've heard of that guy before. It's clear that Cole has figured out how to communicate his ideas and concepts in a huge way in a few short years. Bravo. And he's referencing your age, right?
I believe so, yeah. I'm 24 years old.
You're 24 years old, Cole?
Yeah.
Nice. Very enterprising. And I say that too because you can see a link to Cole's website downstairs, and he's got some great new publications out. Most recently is Freedom of Movement.
Yes, exactly. Complete
Beautiful.
thumb position etude book.
Oh, very cool. So why did you make a book about thumb position?
Because I was having a lot of frustration myself using the standard positions to play jazz and to improvise in thumb position. And I started studying Rabath's method when I was studying at Manhattan School of Music for my undergrad. And I realized through that method, with all the different fingering combinations and all the sort of unorthodox methods that he uses, there were so many possibilities. And just within like a month of studying his books, I found myself improvising pretty fluently in thumb position. So I wanted to apply that to a jazz context.
Very cool. Very cool. Nice. So maybe we should just ask a few questions here. Like, what is thumb position? Why do we want to do it? Like, you talk about soloing, right? But maybe we could get into just a little bit about what it actually is.
So it's the upper register of the instrument. It's called thumb position because the thumb is obviously an anchor, which sort of begins the position and it rests on the harmonics, the G, D, A, and E harmonics right here. Of course, if you watch players like Rabath or Edgar Meyer, they use their thumb basically all the way down to this D over here. So you can sort of extend thumb position, but really what we refer to as thumb position starts here with the harmonics.
Like in a traditional sense. That's exactly. The thumb position that most people know. Let me see if I can add this in and get a little thumb position cam. We're getting fancy here, Cole. We're getting fancy here. So this is my G where the harmonic is, right? So just for if you're new to thumb position, and that's totally cool. We're here to talk about all aspects of it and get really into it and then expand upon it with Cole's technique here. Thumb position is finding the harmonic, whereas if you divide the string directly in half, right? That's going to give you the lowest pitched harmonic on the G string, right? So that's typically where you keep your thumb. But now where you keep your thumb, right? I like to keep it about there, like right on that knuckle. I don't know how clear that is, because it gives a clearer like bell tone. Whereas if I was closer to like the pad or something like that, or closer towards the fingernail, right? It kind of just feels weird to me. I've seen people do it, but it has a different sound to it too. It's kind of like playing on the tips of your fingers, is perhaps.
Exactly. Yeah.
You agree?
Exactly.
Cool. So the first place to go is keeping your thumb like planted, like you were just saying, right, Cole, on the G string or the harmonic, the 12th, what would be the 12th fret for the electric cats, right? And then finding your way from there, that would be like a chromatic exercise, right? And you can do that going across.
Good.
And then, of course, you can open this up into different ways to open up your hand, but still have your thumb anchored right there, right? Anything you want to say about the left arm, the left hand, the right hand, sound production?
Yeah, sure. I think a mistake that a lot of people make when playing in thumb position is to sort of let the wrist rest on the shoulder of the bass. So they're playing like this, if this makes sense. So you can see my wrist is sort of pointing down, or my elbow is pointing downwards. My wrist is resting here on the shoulder of the bass. This limits the sound. It's very hard to get a good sound. And it's also very hard to move and to shift really at all. So what I like to do is I like to almost exaggerate the height of my elbow. So you can see where my elbow is. It's literally all the way up here. And this is what it looks like every time I play in this register. It's all the way up here.
Like this. Okay.
You know, and then with that, I don't have to move it, because if it's down here and I want to move up the neck,
you're already cleared of the top plate. You're already cleared of the shoulder.
Right. Exactly. So, but if it's all the way up here, then it's a very easy motion, as opposed to like moving it up and like, you know, it already looks, we want to make it cool. We want to make thumb position look cool, because we're so used to it looking like a struggle, but we want to make it look cool, you know? We want to make it look cool.
With every aspect of bass playing, right? You want to look cool and make it seem like it's effortless, right?
It's got to be relaxed. It's got to be relaxed and effortless.
And that transfers to the music, not just physically and visibly, but you know, the vibe on stage, like everything else on the bandstand, right? So man, I love that you said that. That's really cool. That's very cool. Yeah, and so, and it just for my 2 cents really quick, is if you play with your too, you're going to set yourself up for some pain down the road. No doubt about it, right? If you break the wrist, and that's playing in the lower positions too. So as I had the privilege of studying with Michael Moore for a while, great bass player, played with Dave Brubeck and tons of people, and really cool on upright, on thumb position as well. But one of the best pieces of advice he gave to me was to think about the flat part of your forearm, the back of it, being flat into your wrist, like this, almost as if you're walking. I don't know. Does that jive with what I know you studied Alexander technique?
Absolutely,
and okay, that makes cool. So, and that way everything is just flowing. But I really like that the having the elbow up so that you can shift and not have any issues with the shoulder. I think that's beautiful. What about the right hand?
Well, the right hand, the funny thing is the tendency is to play really hard because there's less string. So we feel sort of physically lighter. Because when you're playing in the lower positions, that's a lot of string to manage. You know, that creates this like big, beautiful sound, you know. You know, that's a lot of string. But up here, since we have less string, the tendency is to be like, and create this like sort of choppy sound. But the reality is you can get the same sound, but that's the tendency, because it's easier because you have less string, but you can get that same big sound in thumb position. You know, Ray Brown had a big sound in thumb position, you know?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of cats who actually studied the upper register, you know, like if you play the same way you would with that same kind of lightness, you get a big sound in thumb position. You know? You get the same quality of sound, but the key is to play light.
Let me ask you this. Let me see if this is going to work. Bring it back to thumb cam. It's not gimmicky. I swear it's not gimmicky. I'm really trying to get like a closer view. So when I see you playing, it looked like you were playing still like fairly close to the bottom of, it's kind of off screen here, but the bottom of the fingerboard, like you're plucking, but you're just changing your touch. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, cool. Now sometimes I'm into this sound a little bit, getting this little more on the fingertips type of vibe, but it's a different sound, isn't it? So, but what
it's totally a different sound. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hear somebody like Red Mitchell getting a sound like that, or like Michael Moore, or, you know, any of the people that have, you know, in that vein, you know? So it's a different vibe then.
I've seen Patitucci play with 3 fingers like this.
Hey,
I have no idea how he does that. I'm not even going to attempt that. I'm not
like Nils Henning. Yeah, totally. Nils would do that too. Yeah, beautiful. And so you, if I understand right, you're a singer as well, right? And so this translates into how you think about the upper register?
Exactly. So that's basically what attracted me to the upper register at first, because my first instrument was the voice, and I was a soprano opera singer until I was about 14.
Okay.
I took it kind of seriously. I auditioned for LaGuardia High School on voice as a soprano. And,
oh, wow.
When my voice dropped when I was about 14, my parents bought me an upright bass and just sort of invested me with it. But
cool.
That was initially, I know everyone says, bass players are supposed to stay low, and, that's true. That is true. But I'm talking about, from my perspective, from how I responded to the bass when I first started playing it.
Yeah.
My natural instinct was to play in thumb position because I was hearing melodies from being a soprano, from being the lead voice. So since then, I've been trying to imitate that sound I came up hearing, imitate that in thumb position.
Beautiful. And that's your truth. I like how you put that too. It's like, yes, we do our role. We play the bottom end, make beautiful foundational bass lines. And then when it's, time to solo, if you hear soloing down here, that's totally fine too. That's and then if you hear it up here, it is what it is. You're the one driving the bus, right? You get that opportunity to say what you want to say.
Totally.
So cool. And I think we should mention too, really quick, that you're a student at Juilliard at the moment. Yes. Very cool. What year are you? Are you in your master's?
I'm in my master's. I'm about to graduate.
Ah, beautiful. Yeah, congrats.
A couple more months left. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Nice. You're actually skipping class to do this, right?
Yes, I am.
Jeff Keezer. Don't tell Keys. Well, he already knows, doesn't he? Yeah. So, but anyways, that goes without saying. Thank you again for coming on here today. So that's very cool. So let's talk turkey. Let's get into some exercises. Let's try to do some stuff. So I have a few things from your newest publication, The Freedom of Movement, whereas you have some exercises and some etudes. And you want to start here maybe with some of the replacement fingering?
Yeah, sure.
Concepts?
Yeah, cool. Sure. So basically my concept with this was, I mentioned this earlier, the 0-2-3 fingering is great. I mean, I'm classically trained, so I studied classical at first, and the 0-2-3 fingering is great for, orchestral excerpts, maybe some major or minor scales. When you're talking about improvising, when you're talking about having a full, breadth of technique that you need to express to get your ideas out, I don't find it to be very useful, because when you're here, when you're in 0-2-3 land, the first finger can't really go anywhere. Let's say you're on this D string right here, and you're playing 0-2-3, D, E, and F.
Okay. Yeah.
So then there's not many places the first finger can go. It can really just go E flat. You don't have that many options. So if you're improvising on a tune and you start, you just have the D Dorian scale. You don't have that many options. Or
that makes sense.
These notes in the E flat major scale. But if you use 0-1-3 instead of 0-2-3, you have a wealth of options.
Now you're expanding the notes. Now you're playing D, E, and F sharp, though.
Right. But what that does to the first finger is it gives it a whole wealth of options. You can play 0-2-3 here also if your hands are big enough. Or if you're right here, this can basically like chords.
Yeah.
You have all these options. But if you stay here, then it's hard to shift. How are you going to shift?
Well, one of the places that often people shift is like moving their thumb up, right? Is like you can shift
exactly, yeah. But you don't have to do that, But see that I just find it to be very limiting. So basically, the whole point of that exercise, not to go off on a tangent.
Please do.
We're talking about this. I'm definitely gonna go off like 3 or 4 times during this.
Of course.
But yeah, like what I do.
Show me what you're doing, and then tell me about it.
Sure.
Okay.
So I'm basically just practicing these 0, 1, 3 combinations, 0, 1, 2. So basically, I do the instead of 0, 2, 3 here, I do 0, 1, 2.
Like this. 0, 1, 2. Okay.
And that basically frees up my hand.
Right. It opens up. So you've got this chromatic.
Exactly. Then I have all of these options that I don't have if I stick.
Now, what happens with the pinky up here?
What do you mean? What happens with it?
I know that's going to come up from a technical aspect. We didn't talk about it because we don't use pinky up in this range.
Yeah, we don't use it.
So what do? Do you hang it back this way like some cats do? Do you let it just dangle?
Oh, it just hangs out.
It just does what it's going to do, right? Because I see some folks like stick it way out here too, like this.
Yeah, I mean, whatever it naturally does. I mean, it's kind of attached to the other fingers. It just kind of hangs out for me.
Right on.
I don't really pay attention to it.
Okay, fair enough. But it's worth noting because I don't want to see anybody up here trying to. Oh, I'm gonna reinvent the wheel.
Definitely don't do that. That's gonna be the next like innovation in upright bass technique. Someone's gonna be like, "Oh, look what I found."
Until we can get genetically engineered to get more fingers, you know.
Yeah, right.
It's coming. Hold on. So 1, like thumb or 0 in all the materials that we'll have on screen today. It's 0 for your thumb. Right. Okay. So let me pull this back up. I'm going to take my screen away here. Pull this back up. So what you have, and this is from your Freedom of Movement publication, right? So 0, 1, 3. That's the more compacted version of what you were talking about. Yes.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay. So to open, and that's the same thing on the G string.
Yeah.
Now the second line that we have down here, that starts the same. But here it opens up into 1, 2.
Exactly. Yeah.
So why do you
this example really isn't anything that, innovative or whatever. This is more just like getting used to these shapes. This is a very sort of introductory way of describing how I approach thumb position. It's basically just getting used to the 0, 1, 3 and 0, 1, 2 shapes.
Beautiful. Okay, yeah. Well said, but we need a good foundation for sure, right?
Totally.
So here's the next couple of bars, and in the second measure here, we see that it opens up into 0, 1, 3, which is what you were just talking about, right?
Yeah.
So we're getting closer down that road, and it's just showing you some of the different chromatic options that you might be able to use. Not chromatic, but different options intervallically that you'd be able to use. So what about this one here? So obviously we could assign these to different scales or different tonalities or whatever.
Right.
Let's see. And then the bottom line is completely opened up, more in a major type of sound.
Exactly.
Okay. What's this fourth one we got? See, I want to go to third. Really
exactly.
Awesome.
That's the whole point of this, because that's the tendency is to do, or I guess we're in this one. Okay. Right. So the tendency would be to play it like this: 0, 2, 3, 0, 1, 3.
Yes.
Right? That's what people would read this if you were sight reading without the fingerings, and you would naturally play it like this. And that closes your hand. Now you're in this closed position that, to me, is very hard to get out of.
Right.
So the reason why I do this is to get used to 0, 1, 3 is cool, but basically getting used to alternating between 0, 1, 2 and 0, 1, 3, and just sort of eliminating 0, 2, 3 from your technical vocabulary.
Interesting.
So it's basically this shift right here. So you're in this position, then you shift immediately to this position, because to improvise fluently in thumb position, you're going to have to do that a lot.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. And so you have to open up your hand just a little bit more to get those extra steps in there, those extra half steps. Okay, cool. Well, that's okay. So that's a replacement fingerings. Now here is something with the thumb, right? Thumb replacement. Can you talk about this just a little bit? Because it cuts off my screen. So can you see that all right?
Yeah.
This is on the this is on the E and the A string. It's the same thing.
E and A string, but it's good to practice this because a lot of people actually don't spend time on the E and A strings in thumb position. They basically they get used to practicing their major scales or minor scales one way, you know.
Right.
You know, which is okay. So now you're familiar with the D and G as pathways to cross in the thumb position. But what about this? You know, people ignore that. So I just practice the same things on the E and A string. And the key is to get a big sound by playing light when you're playing on the E string. Because far too many people play in thumb position on the E string and they're just destroying it. They're like,
yeah, right.
Because it's hard. It's physically very hard because there's no anchor anymore. Because now what do you have? What's holding the instrument? Nothing. You know, when you're in the lower register, it's resting. When you're here, it's resting. When you're here, you can at least use your shoulder. But here, there's nothing. It's like you're like balancing.
Very true. Yeah.
But it's hard, you know.
I guess I never play in this area unless I absolutely need to. Mainly because of the tone, because it is so hard to get that really good tone, right? Because everybody knows you can hit this F or close to it. I'm a little sharp. That F versus that F versus that F, and there's just more strings, so you get more resonance. You get more. Of course. But for speed or for lines that need to be in this area, this is the way to go, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So that's why, you know, it's almost like you can't really have one without the other, because, you know, if the whole point of this is to play lines and to improvise in thumb position, you kind of have to familiarize yourself with the bottom two strings. So I have it written in the publication. I have it written in bass clef just because it's easier to read. It's literally this note. That's the funny thing. It's
right.
It's this note.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Hey, if you're just joining us, please welcome. This is Cole Davis here to talk about thumb position today. Unlocking thumb position is what we're here to talk about today. So we're talking about what the common conceptions of thumb position is. Please leave in the comments. We usually are in the practice section, don't go in the comments, but after we've done a little bit more practicing, we'll hop in the comments and ask or try to answer any questions you have. All comments are welcome too. Just wanted to say that. So, and if you're watching this afterwards, not live, please feel free to comment too. We'll check back in here as well. So let's pull up now that example that I was thinking of. I just pulled up the wrong example. It happens. Pivoting with the thumb. This is what I was thinking I was pulling up earlier, and I did.
Gotcha. Okay.
So what do we have here? This is
all right. So this is basically just straight out of Rabath book 1. Okay. I almost feel bad because I'm totally stealing his stuff, but you know, whatever.
You're endorsing it, right?
Yes. What?
You're endorsing. You're promoting.
Yeah, it's all for the endorsement. You know,
promoting Rabath.
Yeah. So basically, the point of this is to get used to pivoting with the thumb and sort of expanding your knowledge of thumb position and getting further out of the box. So what I'm doing here and that's the advantage of 0. If you're still watching, that's the advantage of 0-1-3 against 0-2-3. If you're just joining us, we were talking about using 0-1-3 instead of 0-2-3 in thumb position. And now basically a lot of the work I do is about eliminating 0-2-3. But this is especially where that comes in handy, because if you're starting 0-2-3, it's really awkward to pivot from 3 to thumb like this. You know, you would that's a very unnatural motion. You wouldn't think to do that.
Yeah, and if you were trying to play this, just really quick, if you're trying to play this like whole tone-ish scale, but without even thinking about moving your thumb, which some cats it wouldn't come up to, you might have a tendency to come over and play that with first finger.
Exactly.
And leave your thumb where it is planted, and some cats just stay right there on it.
Exactly.
And some cats don't use their thumb like at all. honestly.
Right, yeah.
Which is
that too. They're playing up here, and there's no thumb. I'm like, it's like electric bass, but like horizontal now. It's crazy.
Takes all kinds, man. So okay, so let's check this out. I'm gonna try this out, and I know you can't really see my my hand. But that's the idea, yes?
Exactly.
And I think connecting all of these notes is really important in thumb position too.
Exactly.
Make sure you're not stopping the notes before you pluck them again, right?
Exactly. It should really just feel like a scale, So basically, once you get this down, that's why I have it outlined here in terms of blocks. In the actual PDF, you'll see how I have example 1, example 2, example 3, example 4, then 1, 2, 3A, and 4A, which are just basically different combinations in the first position of thumb position.
Okay.
But once you get used to that, then you can obviously do it all around the neck. I just use these exercises. But really you can do it all around the neck.
Cool.
It's really cool for diminished stuff. If you're transcribing a Coltrane solo or something like that, that's where this can really come in handy.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. That's beautiful stuff. That's great stuff to practice right there. Hey, a thought came to mind too. If we're doing our like role of like walking the dog, whatever, like playing bass lines, is the idea of having our action a little bit higher for a bigger sound. You know what I mean? Not like crazy high. Nobody's endorsing that here, and not crazy low. We're always about the middle path here. That's having a good, but still a reasonable height where you can get around and pull the string when you need to. What about at your action when you're thinking about playing in thumb position? Like how high are your strings basically? Where do you adjust the bridge? Like, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, for me, I keep my strings at medium high action or medium action, depending on the weather. They've been medium high, and now the weather. I'm in New York City right now, where the weather is like fluctuating like crazy. So they've been medium high like all week, but usually I keep them around medium, maybe a little higher than medium.
Okay.
And I think with thumb position, the tendency is to turn your action way low and just shred in thumb position, which is nice. I mean, that's really fun. But you can do the same thing with medium or medium high action,
Just with practice and endurance.
It just takes a certain lightness in the sound. Like I'm keeping my left and right hand both super light, not putting a lot of pressure on either wrist.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I love it. Let's check out this next example here. Okay, so this is one of your etudes, or a section of one of your etudes talking about the pivot finger. Yeah. Right? Cool. Oh, and actually I've got something pulled up I wanted to play. This is a video of Cole's. This is on your website, I think?
Yes, it is.
Or probably all over the internet. So this is an etude. So let's check this out. Beautiful. And you look so relaxed playing that. Do you know what I mean? It seems like you're very comfortable doing it.
I should hope my intonation has improved since I recorded that, because every time I listen to that, I cringe because there's like 4 or 5 notes that I played out of tune, and I can't live with myself when I do that. So, that's what it is. That's what it is. Anyway,
believe me, you're not alone in that front.
Of course. Yeah, that's, Edgar Meyer once said, someday someone will learn how to play the upright bass in tune.
Oh, and if Edgar says that, I mean,
exactly.
Okay, for everybody that's not hip to Edgar, after you're done watching this, go YouTube, Google search, whatever, buy all Edgar's albums. I remember that Bach Cello Suites album, the unaccompanied one. When I first heard that, I was like, I'm not going to cuss here on YouTube, but I was like, holy, like, this is insane. How is he doing this? And then I saw him. I was studying at University of North Texas, and he came, and it was shortly after that release had come out. And then I saw him play for the first time. This was pre-YouTube, of course. And I was like, how is this dude playing all of this? Like, the way he physically is looking, and then just so relaxed and just enjoying himself, like, immensely too. So I learned so much just from watching Edgar Meyer. Yeah, but beautiful quote. Yeah, someday somebody's going to learn. Somebody's going to show us all how to do it, right? So anyways, here's the first 3 measures of that etude that we just put on the screen. And I was thinking maybe I would shed it a little bit, and you can tell me what I'm doing, what I could do to improve. So everybody too, if you're hanging out, try this with me, and I'll see if I can do it with the thumb cam. I'm going to go really slow first couple of times. So if you're watching along with me, practice this with me. So I'm going to be very careful of your fingerings here too, because I want to make sure that I have the concept right, because I know some of this repeats and you change some of the fingerings as we move forward, right? So I want to be very specific. I'm going to take it a note at a time. Try it with me here. So hopefully that's a pretty close to a C little chart. C, and then thumb on, so we've shifted up with our thumb here. Now first finger on C, and then D. So this is where we shifted, and this is the same phrase. Exactly. And then bring your thumb down a half step. Back into that open shape that you're advocating for.
Exactly. That's exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I forget where it goes, but somewhere around there. It sounds like it wants to go there.
Yeah.
So how does it sound? What can I do to make that sound better, Cole? Aside from intonation, which we've already kind of talked about.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that sounded really good. I would just honestly open your hand up more. Like basically whenever I play up here, my hand is super open, which I'm going to try to demonstrate.
Please.
So it's basically about keeping your hand open and sort of exaggerating each fingering, because the tendency is to be like, because the notes are so close together, we don't realize how far apart they actually are.
Say that again. Because
the notes in thumb position are so close together, we don't realize how far apart they actually are, which sounds like I just contradicted myself. But
no. But
because we're used to looking at thumb position as a closed-handed sort of box where every note is like right next to each other. But in reality, they're almost as far apart as the lower positions.
Interesting. Yeah. So it takes good ears to be able to play. I mean, anywhere on the bass, it takes an awareness of intonation, pitch, ear training, knowing what a half and a whole step, what major thirds sound like, minor thirds, etc. down the board, right? You have to kind of know what you're looking for before you get there, which is probably that's more attuned to your singing background than maybe, I started off on drums, and I remember when I started playing bass, I was like, okay, I get the rhythm part of this, but I can't sing, I can't sing a major sixth. What's up with that? Or even I'll be honest, even things smaller than that. Like, okay, is that major or minor? When we're first getting started. So ear training is definitely a thing inside of all of this, right? Or maybe not ear training, but awareness of pitch and intonation, and not shifting. Like if your thumb, like, so for instance, if we're here, and I want to think about your comment about opening up my hand too. Does that look more open?
Yes, that looks more open.
That does. Whereas perhaps if I just do it without thinking, that's more what I'm used to. Whereas you're thinking more like this. Yes?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so my fingers are actually coming more, and your fingers perhaps are coming more perpendicular to the string, as opposed to like at an angle like this.
Right, exactly. So when you think about like playing walking bass lines, you know, generally speaking, if you have good technique, which obviously you do, your hand is wide open.
Right.
You know, you're right in this position. You can almost play a tritone with the second and third finger. That's how open the hand is when we're walking. But then we get into thumb position, and it's like, you know, then it closes up. So I think the point is to keep your hand as open as you would when you're, you know, using the claw in the lower positions, especially in first position, you know.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, cool. Let me try this one more time and think about this openness, and I'm going to really think about my pitch as I do this too.
Cool.
So here's using my open G to find my C for sure. Everybody, you can use your open strings to check for all this intonation. I'm reading this from the screen, so that's why I'm going to mess it up, all right? So here we go. Oh, I'm already closed up the way I was used to, so. Etc. Right?
Exactly,
that does feel a lot more grounded, honestly. That's a really good. Cole, you still there?
Yeah, did you cut out for a second?
I surely did. For some reason, my Ethernet is not working at the moment, and so I'm trying to do this on Wi-Fi. But we're back. We're back.
Oh yeah. Sorry. What did you say? You totally froze, and I was just like, you know.
I don't even remember. I was cussing a lot and kind of a lot of shouting. So
yeah.
No, I wasn't. I'm fine. But I was going to come into the next three measures here and see what's up. Cool. Or actually, with our time, maybe we could move this. Let me just try this out here too. So here's the same idea, and it did go to an A flat. I thought it sounded like it wanted to go to an A flat, right? Now thumb is on E, so we're shifting up, right? Okay, so. Whoa. Okay. 1, 3, 0. I'm way out of tune now. Let me back it up. 1, 3, thumb 1. I feel like my thumb is not catching that E properly. Boom, da, dee, boom, dum, boom, boom. And now my hand is closed back up, the opposite of what you're telling me. Okay, all right. This is challenging stuff, man.
Yeah.
You make it
so basically, the point is of this part of the exercise, and I do this a lot in several of my other etudes, is to open up the hand, but also realize that the thumb can play, you know, intervals like major thirds, intervals that are close together. You know, the thumb it's sort of as a dual function. That's why I call it the pivot finger, because it's, to me, very similar to like the pivot foot in basketball. You know, like one foot stays planted, and that enables the other foot to, I mean, I know I look ridiculous demonstrating this, but
no, keep it up.
Yeah, my athletic ability is just unbelievable. But yeah, no, it enables the other foot to move, like, you know, in however many different ways, you know. So you can do the same thing with this. There we go. You know, but basically that starts with understanding what you can do with the thumb once you use these fingers. Basically, you can just use 1, 2, and 3 as a pivot finger.
Okay.
And you can practice this in, intervals of 1 or 2 notes. If, for example, if my first finger is here, where can my thumb go? Major third, minor third. If my hand is big enough, I can hit that second. Or let's say I'm on second finger, C on the second finger. Where can I go?
Ah, very good. Yeah.
And then if I'm here, let's say I'm on the third finger.
Now your third finger is the pivot, is the planted finger.
Well, that's the thing. They can all be planted fingers. So
right. I just wanted.
Yeah, it's not necessarily one finger that's the pivot finger, but the pivot finger kind of rotates throughout playing in thumb position. But
and just to be clear, the pivot finger you're saying is the planted finger, right?
Yeah, whatever finger is planted. Yeah, whatever finger is planted, that's the pivot finger.
And where traditionally that might be the thumb.
Right. It only stays planted for however long, but it enables that, freedom of movement with the other fingers. Yeah.
Beautiful. I just want to be sure.
Okay. But yeah. And then if I'm here, then I have this. I can move to the D over here. You can just practice scales all around the fingerboard or practice patterns or whatever, just using that. My point with all this is it doesn't have to be one specific combination that you use throughout the fingerboard. You can literally use all of your fingers interchangeably.
Interesting. That's really cool. That's really cool. It makes a lot of sense. So everybody watching too, you can find all this information, Cole's website. The link is downstairs here, but he's got a great etude book out, and obviously more on the way, I'm sure, as well as some really hip, live solo, not live, but solo videos where you're playing in interesting locations, locales, which that's really cool. So, and there's a lot of this is just the tip of the iceberg with what we're talking about here today. So I've definitely got some great stuff to start shedding on just with what I've heard from you today, Cole. So thank you for sharing all that. That's really cool.
Of course.
And thank you, Mr. Raboff. Absolutely, of course, for the inspiration. Let's hop into the comment section and see what people have for us, huh? Sound good?
Sure.
Cool. Okay. Let's see. All right. So I saw some of the earlier comments. Oh, yeah. I'll pick it up from where is the thumb position applicable to electric bass? All right. Okay. So we've got a friend here from Brazil. Very cool. Welcome. Obrigado. Hey, you know this cat, right?
Oh, what's up, Matt? How's it going, man?
Stool. What's up, dude? This is a Killing guitar player, St. Louisan. I'm based in St. Louis, as is Open Studio. Killing guitar player. Reasonable guy too. He's a little sus. He's a little suspect. Rick Hicks, what's up? Thanks, Bob. Great topic. Glad you're here with us. Thanks, Rick. We're still live, so if anybody has any comments, any questions, any criticisms, suggestions, food advice, anything. Thumb position, the final frontier. Yeah, Terry. Exactly. But we have to broach that frontier, right? Yeah. All right. Floyd Shirts is saying I love Scott LaFaro's playing in the upper register. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, that's probably one of the first cats I ever heard. I remember being
one of the first to do it for sure.
Yeah, right. Personally, for myself, hearing Sunday at the Village Vanguard for the first time, and I'm definitely not alone on that, but hearing that for the very first time, that was my first experience with Scott LaFaro, and that just blew my mind. I mean, not just, of course, him playing in the upper register, but the ideas, the musicality, and when he's doing the bass roll too, even if it is broken up time or whatever you want to call it, it's still just beautiful. I mean, so beautiful.
Of course, yeah.
Let's see. Okay, This is my buddy Dave Shepard. He's always on here with some good stuff. Can you talk about the role of the left shoulder, triceps, etc.? When I work out in thumb position, it's my left shoulder that feels it afterwards. And that, that's a great point, Dave. Because when you were talking about this, Cole, as far as kind of having this is it okay to say exaggerated? Totally. Shoulder like this, I feel that in my shoulder right here too, even just trying that. Whereas if you're a little lower, that feels a little bit more like you would if you're just, say, walking down the street. Nobody's walking. So do you bring your shoulders up when you do that? Or maybe you can tell me about it.
I actually don't. To me, what causes pain, at least for me when I'm playing in thumb position, what causes pain in the shoulder is resting the weight of the bass on the shoulder. So basically, I'm using the shoulder to support the entire weight of the instrument. When really, you have to find a sort of balancing point where the bass rests on your torso, and then you just lightly use the shoulder to just sort of guide your movement up the fingerboard.
That makes sense. Yeah. The neck definitely rests right here as you lean in a little bit, because you have to lean in a little bit for this to work.
Right. But it's very tempting to just lean in with the shoulder and ignore the responsibility of the lower back and the torso against the instrument. But don't do that, because that's what's going to cause pain.
Good point. That's great advice. What about how you stand? Like when you're playing in thumb position, do you have any advice on, or any thoughts on how you're standing or what you're thinking about physically?
Yeah, it's more efficient. It's more efficient to stick your butt out a little bit, actually. It's hard to do that if you're playing a solo or like an orchestral passage and you're going back and forth between thumb position and the lower positions. It's hard to do that, because you'd just be doing this all the time and it might look kind of weird. But just as a general rule in thumb position, you should sort of arch your back and just stick your butt out a little bit, just to give that sort of extra lightness to the shoulder and to the arm.
Interesting. Well, I'm good then, because I'm always sticking my butt out when I'm playing. So.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Yeah. Cole's like, oh, that's awesome, Bob. Moving on. Yeah. So you're saying to just give a little bit out while you're.
Exactly. Like can you see? Yeah, like this. Interesting. So I'm still supporting the instrument here with the torso, but I'm not actually, I'm not like upright like the way I would be if I was walking, but I'm over here. I'm in this position, so that way my shoulder isn't bearing all the responsibility. It's still leaning here, but it's just out a little bit to give me more sort of flexibility.
I see.
And then I can just sort of move my elbow and my shoulder, or mostly my elbow. I can just move my elbow without injuring my shoulder,
That's great advice. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Back into the comments real quick. Edelson's thumb. This is another regular. Thanks. Good to see you, Edelson. Glad to see you here again. Always checking out the building blocks of bass. I love it. Steve Rowland, this is terrific. You're both amazing. All right. We'll take that. Thank you, Steve. Okay. Floyd Shirts is back. The hand opens as the shoulder is lifted. So maybe that was what was hanging me up too a little bit. Yeah. You kind of have to, right? To get this way. Your shoulder.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That's a really good point, Floyd Shirts. Thank you, man. Yeah, because if you never want to be like this, and that's why you see a lot of old or house bases that are all kind of like worn away right here, because cats are doing this, and you see amazing, but I mean, this is all from our perspective, right? That needs to be said too. You can see some amazing bass players play with their arms resting on the shoulder, and it's about the music. You know what I mean? Like so I just want to say that too. This is just from our perspective, or at least I'll say that for myself, Cole. and yeah, I apologize about the audio. Apparently my Ethernet decides not to work right before the show, and we're going Wi-Fi. But it seems to be working. And Damien says, your left hand was with us the whole time. Beautiful. All right, Rick, great stuff. Rick is another regular. Good to see you, Rick. Yo, Pete. Wow, that was great. All right. Buddy Damien, thanks, Bob and Cole. You're most welcome.
You got it.
And thank you again, Cole, for all coming on here and all your knowledge as well, man. Excellent lesson from Ron Brown. Thank you, Ron. Let's see. Oh, here's my buddy Mario. Enjoyed the session, even not an upright bass player. Yeah, that's all right. That's all right, because I think some of the concepts are definitely applicable towards electric bass in regards to sound, for sure. If you're playing higher up, you don't need to really, you don't need to kill it, So, and just staying relaxed. I think that's a really huge thing, no matter where you're playing on the bass, but that's a big one. Yeah. All right, let's check out this last one here. Taylor Gerber. How about thoughts on approaching thumb position when playing standing versus using a stool? Oh, this is a very important topic.
That's a great question, Taylor. That's a great question.
Does standing provide more flexibility? So what do you think, Cole?
To be honest, sitting provides more flexibility. If I were doing a recording session playing entirely in thumb position, or concert, whatever, playing entirely in thumb position,
sure,
I would actually find it to be more physically logical to have a stool with me. But the reality is that's not the case all the time. And most of what we do is down here, right? Thumb position is like an extra thing that we can have fun exploring and whatever. So if we actually use a stool, we're sacrificing the role of the bass to play in thumb position. To me,
hear that?
You seldom, it has been done. I've seen bass players play great walking bass lines while sitting in a stool, but it's not.
And it might be a necessary thing, depending on.
Yeah, it might be necessary if you have a medical thing. That's a whole separate issue. But generally speaking, it's really hard to play great bass lines when you're sitting in a stool and playing. Right? Like when you say,
I agree, because I would think that, it's really hard for me to play anything where I'm thinking about swinging or really grooving, even sitting down. But I always consider that a personal thing, because honestly, at home, I'll sit down. I have a stool, I'll sit down and work stuff out. But if I'm thinking about like really grooving and like moving with the music, a stool is just going to limit me. But playing in thumb position, I think if I do much of that, where I'm practicing, say, standing at home, and then I practice sitting, you have to be really careful doing that, I think, because your technique is going to be different, and you're probably not as attuned to what your body does as well doing one or the other. Like, say, if you're usually a stander and you start sitting down a bunch playing, you might end up with some aches and pains because you're not accustomed to that, or the right height or the right angle. But I think from a stability point, which was, I think, the point of the comment here, thoughts or standing providing more flexibility, actually. Yeah, I think, obviously the bass rests on you in a different way if you're sitting. So the bass is not going to move as much, which is one of the big benefits to sitting too, right? Or one of the other big benefits, aside from not having to stand for the whole time. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right. And Ron is back. Thanks. Yeah, Ron, of course, man. Of course. High praise for Cole coming from Rufus. Yes. Studied with him in the 80s. Yeah, Scott, you've shared that before. Yeah, that's great praise from Rufus. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, and the obligatory, can you see this, Cole?
Oh, of course. What string? I was very fortunate. I'm one of the last people on this earth to have obtained a brand new set of velvet garbos.
Oh, really?
I spent about 3 weeks scouring the internet for different sites that might have them, and I found this site in Australia that was selling 3 sets, and I bought all of them.
No kidding. Wow.
I love velvet garbos. They're my favorite string, and I was heartbroken when they went out of business.
Something with the machinery, right? At the company?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's terrible. I love garbos too. And do you have you don't keep a full set on?
No, I use spiral chords on the E and A's, which
At one point I had a whole set of garbos on the bass, which I really dug. Like I really liked that. It just felt smooth across and had a great sound. But then of course, you need something else in different situations for the E and then the A. Right, so personally, I'm using Eva Perazzi's on the E, A, and D. I use the mediums, and then I've got an olive, Perazza olive on the G string. So for myself, which I dig. It seems to change every now and then, but that's how it goes. So if anybody's looking for some velvet garbos, hit up Cole online. ColeDavisMusic.com.
Oh, are you kidding? I am not selling them.
How much, Cole? How much?
How much?
How much, man?
Man, if you gave me $1,000, I would consider it. Other than that, I'm not selling my velvet carpet.
That's per string or per set or?
Yeah, no, per string. Yeah, $4,000.
Now, luckily, I have, I mean, I'm not alone. Like, I keep a lot of old strings when I change them out, so I have a fair, I'll put that out there. I've got a fair number of strings on the back, and have some of these velvets hanging out. I like the anemas too. Have you ever tried those?
Oh, those are great. Yeah,
those are really nice. Those are like Rufus Reed, I know, was endorsing those or playing with those for a while. I'm not sure if he still does, but they kind of tear up the fingerboard a little bit. Okay, let's see. Okay, we're moving along. How to don't bow the first finger. How to not bend the first finger is what Edelson is saying. That's a very good point, Edelson. Yeah. So how and I don't think we said that in this conversation yet, but keeping curved fingers and playing on the tips of your fingers, that's a common advice. What's your thoughts on that, Cole?
Well, the same way you learned to not bend your first finger when you're walking, you just apply that to thumb position. It's kind of amazing how we think of thumb position as sort of having this separate technique from walking. It's really not that different. It's just that now the hand is on the instrument as opposed to half on, half off. So same way you practice this. Keeping this curve, do the same thing here. And it's going to curve a little bit. That's the thing. When you put a little pressure on it, it's going to cave in a little bit. It's almost impossible to keep it consistent.
Yeah.
You want to start that way. No matter what, you have to start with it being curved.
Right. Yeah, I think I notice a lot of students and probably myself and other people too with the ring finger collapsing. This is called collapsing when they're not curved, right? So I notice that a fair amount. But if I take your tip as far as opening up the hand a little bit more, that immediately kind of feels a little bit easier to do without it collapsing.
That's a good point also.
Right?
Because if you're in 0-2-3 land, the first finger is so stuck that it just sort of collapses on its own. Yeah. But if you get used to 0-1-3, you'll get used to using your first finger in a certain way. So eventually you'll get used to sort of keeping the curve in the first finger.
Yeah. Beautiful. All great points. Hey, Cole, this has been so much fun talking about thumb position today, man.
Oh, man.
Thanks for coming to hang out.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've not actually met yet, but I look forward to the day when we get to meet in person. I get to hear you jam. Yeah, man. If you're ever in St. Louis, you know who to look up.
Oh, for sure.
So, yeah. So thanks everybody for watching too. This is always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us on the Building Blocks of Bass. My name is Bob DeBoo, here with great Cole Davis. So check out his website. Check it out downstairs. And while you're out away from YouTube, check out all the Open Studio stuff. Bass Access Pass. I've got a new course out called Where Are the Notes? And happy practicing. Peace, everybody.
Later.
Peace.